Alright, so Cyberpunk 2077 has been given a huge second chance over the last few weeks, and so in turn, CD Projekt has shared a ton of details on the future plans for not just Cyberpunk 2077, but also a Cyberpunk sequel, codenamed Orion, several new Witcher games, a new IP, multiplayer, and more. Meaning there is a lot to go over in this video, so as always, the entire video will be timestamped so you can jump around as you please. So, without further ado, let's roll the intro. Alright, so CD Projekt just hit us with a massive strategy update and long-term product outlook, which has blessed us with an overwhelming amount of information on their upcoming projects and updates on their company as a whole. With the Witcher franchise surpassing 65+ million copies sold and Cyberpunk 2077 surpassing 20+ million copies sold by itself, it's kind of a no-brainer that they're going to want to push these IPs to their limits, and they seem to be doing just that with the amount of announcements here. So what are the projects that they're working on? Well, the first, of course, is Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, which they're classifying as a major story-driven expansion for the game. With 350 developers total currently on the project, it is in the final production phase, on schedule for a 2023 release. And while a lot of people have been disappointed by the fact that there will be only one expansion for the game, Cyberpunk fans have a lot more to look forward to, as they have officially announced the upcoming development for Project Orion, a Cyberpunk 2077 sequel that will prove the full power and potential of the Cyberpunk universe, which will be developed by the new CD Projekt Red studio built in North America, with a new team in Boston that will be collaborating with the already existing Vancouver team to help bring this new Cyberpunk game to life. And this new studio will have a load of veteran Cyberpunk developers, a lot of which you'll know the names of, including Pavel Sasko, as he's announced over on Twitter. Beyond Cyberpunk, they're also in pre-production on 3 Witcher games and have plans for even more. The first of which is Project Sirius, an innovative take on the Witcher universe telling an unforgettable story for existing Witcher fans and new audiences. Developed by the Molasses Flood and supported by the main CD Projekt Red team, there's currently 60+ involved in the project, which they have said will include a form of multiplayer. Second is Project Polaris, a story-driven open-world RPG built on the legacy of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This is the new Witcher game that has been previously announced, the first in the new trilogy, and is being developed by the main CD Projekt Red team, with 150+ already involved currently. And even more interesting, their plans are to have all 3 games in the trilogy released within a 6-year period following the Polaris release. So a new mainline Witcher game every 3 years on top of the side projects. And then the third is Project Canis Majoris, a story-driven, single-player open-world RPG set within the Witcher universe. But this time, it's contracted to be developed by a third-party studio led by ex-Witcher veterans. Now, whether this has anything to do with Rebel Wolves, a studio that formed earlier this year by ex-CDPR veterans, remains to be seen. I only question if that will be the case, as they've previously shared a concept art for their project and have stated that they want to run their studio on their own terms and not chase trends, so we'll have to wait and see. Cyberpunk and The Witcher isn't where things end though, as CD Projekt Red has now confirmed that they'll be expanding with a third new IP, codenamed Project Hadar. A new standalone IP distinct from The Witcher and Cyberpunk 2077, developed 100% internally and has been in incubation since late 2021. It's currently in the conceptual phase, so early pre-production, by a small strike team at the studio. So it will be very interesting to see what this ends up being. It'll definitely be quite a few years away, and I think 2 easy paths they could take is post-apocalyptic or something in space, either of which I'd love personally, but there are really infinite possibilities for what this could be. So I will definitely be looking forward to this. So CD Projekt has 8 AAA projects based on their IP in the pipeline, with only one of them being from an external studio. But there are plans for more projects from external studios, of course, based on their IP, as they have announced plans to license out non-core products, which will mean not just AAA games, but also new products, mobile games, and TV and film. For those unaware, they started parallel development in 2022, meaning that they're working on multiple games at once, that being multiple IPs. As of right now, that's Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty and the next Witcher game, and that will likely rotate to the next Cyberpunk game after development on Phantom Liberty has finished. So this will mean a faster turnaround for their games, as each IP has a team working on it at all times, rather than alternating between the two. This is something I really wish Bethesda Game Studios would do with their IP, as they're starting to fall behind big time. So this means that we don't need to wait another decade for a new Cyberpunk game just because the new Witcher game is in development. If they can hit their targets, this would mean a new AAA CD Projekt game almost every year. Whether or not that pans out, we'll have to wait and see. They also solidified that most of their new games will introduce a form of multiplayer to enrich the single-player experience, but of course keeping the single-player focus. And what kind of multiplayer they could include will likely depend on the project, but it could be something like the multiplayer we see in Rockstar games, which is more of a sandbox experience, or something more simple like a co-op mode. So it'll be interesting to see what lengths they go when it comes to multiplayer, but as of right now, it could be something almost meaningless like an invasion mode. And of course, with the success of both the Witcher show and Cyberpunk Edgerunners, they are also planning to further expand into TV and film. I think there's a lot of forms that both of these IPs can work in, and if we can get the quality of Edgerunners in more forms, I am all for it. Should also be interesting to see how their new IP will translate to TV and film. Of course, this is all being mostly brought to life by their initiative on improving their product quality, workplace environment, and development tools, such as using Unreal Engine 5. So they've really been trying to improve the quality of their studios since the launch of Cyberpunk, so I hope we get to see the results of this with both Phantom Liberty and the next Witcher game. Now, alongside all of this, we also got an announcement that Marcin Iwiński will be leaving his executive role as joint CEO of CD Projekt. He'll be staying as a shareholder and supporting the management board, but he'll be handing over his duties to his colleagues from the board, which is quite the announcement. Whether or not this will have any meaningful impact, I can't really say. Now, unfortunately, during this strategy update, we didn't get any news on The Witcher 3 Next Gen, which, while we'll be discussing more about it later in the video, there isn't really anything meaningful on the project. It's apparently still on track, but unfortunately, no further updates as of right now, which is honestly a surprise, as that was really the only thing I was expecting from this update. Instead, we got a whole lot more. Now, I think we also need to address Cyberpunk 2077's recent revival. As for those of you that have been living under a rock, Cyberpunk 2077 has been doing very well following the release of not just patch 1.6, but also the Netflix anime series Cyberpunk Edgerunners. And when I say Cyberpunk 2077 has been doing very well, I mean very well. With a peak player count on Steam of over 136,000 players the other week, and it has continued with a steady daily peak player count of 80 to over 100,000 every day since. It was even sitting at the #1 top seller above Call of Duty while on sale, and that is listed by revenue. CD Projekt even put out a statement that each day the other week, there was over 1 million players on the game across all platforms, and that the game has now surpassed 20 million copies sold, which we did briefly go over in the strategy update. Again, this is thanks to patch 1.6, Edgerunners, and the 50% discount that they were running during all of this. In fact, the game even has an 88% recent reviews on Steam right now, which is quite phenomenal. Now, some of you might be wondering, why is this important to me? Well, this will mean a positive influence on both the developers and the franchise itself, as the developers have been sharing their excitement over the love the game has been receiving over the last few weeks, which has honestly been heartwarming to watch, as they've been hard at work on both updates that have already released, the upcoming overhauls that we've discussed in a previous video, as well as the Phantom Liberty expansion coming in 2023, which again is in the final stage of production and will probably be coming out early in 2023 rather than the end. So the game has not only seen huge improvements since launch, which was a rough one to say the least, but there is also plenty to look forward to. With things like the vehicle combat and NCPD rework on the way, which we've gotten a glimpse of what that could look like thanks to the vehicle combat mod that implements those cut features, which just so happens to be a mod we featured the other week in a mod showcase. Patch 1.6 even included a few smaller changes that weren't even mentioned in the patch notes, which has benefited console players by quite a bit, as apparently the animated metro wasn't a thing on consoles before this patch, so that's now been added, bringing it in line with the PC version. They also apparently brought mouse and keyboard support to the Xbox consoles, which, while you can't rebind keys as of yet, it's a welcome addition for those that prefer it. We also got a massive update for PC players such as myself, as during NVIDIA's RTX 4000 reveal event, Cyberpunk 2077 was one of the games used to show off some of the fancy new features. That being DLSS 3.0, which seems like it could be an absolute game changer for single player games like Cyberpunk that are super demanding, offering greatly improved performance. Sadly, DLSS 3.0 is exclusive to the RTX 4000 series, so this will be benefiting a much smaller group of PC players. That said, Cyberpunk is also getting an upgrade to RTX features with the new Raytracing Overdrive mode. which will feature NVIDIA RTX Direct Illumination, also known as RTX DI, giving each neon sign, street lamp, car headlight, LED billboard, and TV accurate ray trace lighting and shadows, bathing objects, walls, passing cars, and pedestrians in accurate colored lighting. Ray traced indirect lighting and reflections now bounce multiple times compared to the previous solution's single bounce, so the result is even more accurate, realistic, and immersive global illumination, reflections, and self-reflections. Ray trace reflections are now rendered at full resolution, further improving their quality, and improved, more physically based lighting, which removes the need for any other occlusion techniques. And this is all being supported by the several new NVIDIA technologies to accelerate and improve ray tracing overall, such as shader execution reordering, opacity micromaps, and NVIDIA real-time denoisers. So if you have an extra kidney to sell off to buy an RTX card, you'll be able to experience all this greatness in an upcoming update for Cyberpunk 2077. Whether or not this will be a standalone update in a smaller hotfix or be a part of something like patch 1.7, we'll have to wait and see. But DLSS 3.0 alone makes me want to buy one of these cards. But I don't have the money for that right now, so maybe one day. That said, if you want to throw your hat in the ring for an RTX 4090 GPU, NVIDIA and CD Projekt are collaborating to give away 3 RTX 4090s with a Cyberpunk 2077 backplate and support bracket from V1 Tech. These will be the only 3 in existence, so this won't be a typical giveaway. It will include a bit of an ARG to get your chance to win, so it will require a bit of effort on your end. So I'll leave a link to where you can find out more down in the description below. All I can say is good luck. Now, we also got some bad news that will affect a very small portion of people, but I wanted to talk about it nonetheless, as Google Stadia is officially shutting down in January 2023. So anyone that has been playing Cyberpunk 2077 using Google Stadia will be cut off on January 18th. And while this won't affect a lot of people, a few of you have noted that you use Stadia to play the game, so I wanted to ensure that you were made well aware of this news. There isn't really a cross-progression path for those affected by this, other than to PC, so this will be quite a tricky situation for some to deal with. And a final little goof I wanted to share that the official Cyberpunk account tweeted out in response to Elon's tweet about the Cybertruck. They actually responded with what is seemingly concept art, but actually looks like an in-game asset of the Cybertruck, with a caption joking about it coming to Cyberpunk. We know CD Projekt doesn't shy away from collaborations like this, and Elon has expressed his enjoyment of the game, but if I'm completely honest, I think this is just a lighthearted joke rather than an actual hint at something coming. So I wouldn't go expecting a Cybertruck in a future update. Now, earlier in September, we also got a load of info from the CD Projekt Group's financial webcast, where they revealed a load of new information on current projects and future plans. A lot of which ties into some of the things we've already discussed in this video, thanks to the strategy update, so we'll only be going over info that adds some value to that or is newer. The things emphasized here is that they are now deep into parallel development, with 2 teams working on 2 separate projects. As it stands right now, about half the team, that being the biggest group, is working on the Cyberpunk expansion, and nearly 1/4, that being the second largest group, are on pre-production for the next Witcher game. And the rest consists of those that are still working on support for Cyberpunk 2077 updates, The Witcher 3 Next Gen, and other projects, such as the Molasses Flood project we discussed earlier, Project Sirius, which has grown quite a bit since 2021. This is all as of July 31st, 2022, so this has undoubtedly grown by quite a bit. They also gave us a bit more reasoning behind abandoning previous generation consoles, rather than just the technical limitation side of things. We decided to focus our attention and resources on the new gen versions of Cyberpunk 2077, so we can further develop and upgrade the game on PC, Stadia, which is now dead, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series. Of course, the game will continue to operate on previous gen consoles, and we will keep providing technical support. As to what they mean by technical support, I'd imagine that just consists of things like hotfixes for any game-breaking issues going forward, and not anything meaningful. This also led into further details on the expansion, where they stated the following. We decided to develop one major expansion for Cyberpunk 2077 titled Phantom Liberty. To provide the best possible experience and great new features, the expansion will come to next gens and PCs only. The release is planned for next year. So again, for those of you that don't know, this is currently the only planned expansion as they're abandoning the Red engine and are moving into a partnership with Epic to use Unreal Engine 5. And I want to make it very clear that the plans won't be swayed at this point, with the confirmation that Project Orion will be starting development soon, and the fact that it will require an enormous amount of effort to revive a second expansion at this point for very little return, as it would be yet another expansion not coming to previous gen. Now, we also did get a very positive nugget for the Witcher 3 next gen, where they said, "I can confirm that this game is on track to launch in the fourth quarter, stay tuned." So if that is indeed the case, that means we'll be seeing a proper reveal for The Witcher 3 Next Gen very soon, considering there is only a few months left in the year, which is still wild to think about. I'd say you can probably expect a December release date rather than any time sooner. The development of the next-gen version was also further elaborated on during the Q&A session, where they stated the following. The team is appropriate. When we took over the product, it wasn't ready, of course, but the remaining work was very highly specialized technical work. So there's a group of professionals appropriate for the task, and they're finishing this work. Yes, we're on track to release the game in Q4. And this is actually interesting to hear that it's just very specialized technical work that is left, as there was worries that there was some bad blood or issues at Saber Interactive that caused the project being moved over to Projekt Red to begin with. And this seems to make that sound less likely, which is good to hear. There was also a good amount of further info on the current activity during the Q&A. So let's start with some answers related to the Cyberpunk expansion. The expansion is the last project developed with our own technology. We are where we should be at this stage. It is a very advanced stage, and the bulk of our development team is engaged in the project. I cannot comment on dates. We are saying that it'll be next year. There will be time for further announcements. So honestly, I'm kind of glad that they're keeping it to a year release window and not throwing out any estimations as they've done in the past. This expansion is making me feel like they've learned on staying realistic and vague with release windows to avoid delays. And to hear it is in the advanced stages is comforting. It's been in development for quite a while, and with it still not coming out till 2023, I can only imagine the amount of depth there is with this expansion. Of course, we'll have to see if that's the case when it drops. As for the pricing of the expansion, we're obviously not discussing the price at this point in time. We're going to reveal that at an appropriate moment. Having said that, we did mention this is a major expansion. It's actually pretty sizable, and we're happy with its quality, so the price is going to be in line with what we present to the players, basically. So this could mean that we see pricing close to that of Blood and Wine at launch, which was $19.99. But in all honesty, I think it might be more than that, as we're quite a few years away from The Witcher 3, so I'd expect something more like $24.99 or $29.99. It really just depends on how big the expansion actually ends up being. As for why there will only be one expansion, we've decided to develop one major expansion, which is going to take advantage of the capabilities of new-gen consoles. Having said that, we're totally committed to developing the Cyberpunk IP further beyond this expansion. We've invested a lot of time and effort into building this franchise, and we definitely want to build on top of what is there right now. New stories, new experiences, new content, not just in the video game format. In terms of expansions, there's going to be just one major expansion. However, there's going to be new stuff. So this was the first official hint toward a new Cyberpunk sequel, which has now been officially confirmed as Project Orion. And one of my favorite questions was actually about the shift to Unreal Engine and how that works for them. We've just started, but the agreement was preceded by a very detailed evaluation of future plans of Epic Games and development plans related to Unreal Engine. It's a perfect match for us to use this technology. On top of that, Unreal is known for great developer tools, so we believe that some processes and pipelines should become more efficient once we fully roll out the technology. We're now running workshops and are still learning, but there are also many more developers familiar with this technology, so the pool of potential hires is definitely bigger than before, which confirms that this wasn't just about improving their technology, but also opening the door to more developers. As well, you can do some pretty cool things with proprietary tech. It makes onboarding new hires a lot more difficult. And with their collaboration with Epic, it means they'll still have a voice on things being implemented into the engine. Which leads us into the development timeline of the next Witcher on Unreal Engine 5. We are in pre-production, as I've said. That is the first phase of development, and as of now, we have the required team, and we are in line with the plan, but I cannot comment on the total time of the project. As of now, we are where we should be, and the game is being developed on Unreal Engine, as we've said. And that's it for the Q&A. And I know that was a lot of information for one video, so I hope you all enjoyed if you stuck with me. We haven't done a video near this scale since the hour-long info dumps before launch, so of course, you might be a little fatigued at this point. But if you're not and you want to check out more of my channel, there are 2 videos on screen that you might enjoy. But that's it for this video. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, this is Apoqsi, signing off.